Hi there, I'm David.
And I'm Con, and welcome back for another video. David, what are we going to talk about today?
Sliders.
Sliders. You and I both own this particular slider. It's the iFootage Shark slider and the X2 motion controller.
I'm glad you remember the model number because I can't. But I actually bought this. I actually bought this because of you, Con. I was very impressed with your initial review of it.
Thank you. I did a review for John Barry on the initial slider without the X2 motion controller, and here we are back to do another one, this time incorporating the X2 motion controller. Now, I must admit, David, I don't know if you were the same, when I first got the remote control, I didn't understand the logic to it.
No, I struggled a bit.
Exactly, but after persisting a little bit recently with it, I think I got a grip on the logic of the controller.
Yeah, I cut the problem in half. I decided that I wasn't going to use it for time-lapse stills photography. I decided I'm just using it for video, for interviews and product shots and things.
You use it really well for interviews as a second camera. Do you want to talk how you use it?
Well, I use it probably as a third camera in sort of major interviews, and it's the side shot. And when I first introduced, or when I arrived on the first day with this slider, you know, the producers were all saying, "Oh, they make a lot of noise, those things, and we tried those before and they don't work,and blah, blah, blah." And anyhow, they were just blown away by how good this slider was.
So you make a very good point. This slider is silent. If I hit manual and just show people.
I mean, I think if you put a microphone next to the mechanism, you'll probably hear it. But I can tell you that I've done some major interviews.
And it'd probably be going at that speed.
At that speed, yeah. And everyone's sort of been alerted to the fact, there's going to be something noisy to ruin the interview. And even the sound recorders are surprised how quiet it is.
So it's totally usable, isn't it?
I love it.
You just have it going on its own, continually back and forth in ABA mode?
ABA mode. So I have 3 presets. So think about the typical, one-on-one interview where I'm using this as the side shot, and I can have one of the presets if the person's sitting camera left, and another preset if the person's camera right, and then another preset if I just want the thing moving but keeping the center of the the frame centered all along. So for me, that's how it works. It's simple.
Yep. And it really adds drama and production value to that third or second camera angle to the main, where in close-up you've got this camera arcing around the head of the talent.
Yeah, it was amazing. And when I started using it for a major current affairs show, long form current affairs show, and I was watching the interview go to air, and often the editors just use a small portion of this shot, but I found that the editors were actually using its full length and not cutting out of it on the return journey. They were actually, the editors were obviously expressing some creativity themselves, and they were able to edit the story in a way they'd never been able to before.
Because this is, you can feather the end and the beginning to sort of slow down and then continue with a feather, and you can nominate how long you want that feathering or dampening to be.
It's pretty cool, but I probably should say with me, I have the luxury of a second full-size satchel, a Video 18.
That's right, because you put this on a head. And what's the advantage of putting this on a heavy-duty tripod like the Satchel 18?
Well, what it means for me is that I have the 3 presets, but what happens if, and often you're setting up the interviews with the producer sitting there or the sound recorder sitting there. Okay, then the talent comes in and the talent's taller or shorter. So in a hurry, you need to make fine adjustments to headroom.
Yep, so you can tilt.
I just tilt it,
with the tripod,
Yeah, so I actually don't have to reprogram it.
That's the key to it, because when you're under pressure and you're setting this up as a second or third camera, you don't want to be finessing and tweaking it.
No, and I won't be able to, because the lights have to be feathered and tweaked as well. And this thing, that's my system. It's on another tripod, and I just make the fine adjustments with the tripod head.
So you can pan and tilt.
Yeah. But I'd better just declare, though, that what I've found, that just having it on a slight angle, you may see just some marks in the carbon fibre. So just be mindful of that if the slider's under warranty still, mine is out of warranty, so I'm probably throwing it around a little bit more now. But it could just, if you do have the whole slider on too much of an angle, you know, if you're running it all day, then you might just find that you could just wear the carbon out. So that's another tip, is every now and then just rotate the carbon tubes.
Oh, so they're not constantly wearing on the same spot.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's another tip. Yeah, that's great. That's great, David. Now, as I said, the logic of the remote controller can be daunting at first, but can I just quickly run through how I set up the slider? Obviously, when you have both together, the first thing you do is make sure they're all on the same frequency. And you do that by going into settings and set, and whoops, if you have a look at here, sync settings, there's some dip switches on the end of the motor here, and underneath the X2 motion control, you just got to make sure they match to the sync settings here. And we discovered something here. We had your slider, which is that shot over there, doing the two shot on, and I had mine on, and my X2 motion controllers,
they clashed.
It was doing all bizarre things, and then you said,
I worked it out.
Yeah, you worked it out. So I had to change my frequency so we can run both sliders at the same time. And obviously you can probably have 4 channels, 4 units at the same time.
And it's probably worth taking very good note of that, because in the city that we are, in Melbourne here, I think you and I don't know a lot of people that have these in this configuration.
That's
so
right.
It's probably something worth checking out in your garage before you go out on the job, because that's probably not something you'd want to be trying to sort out on the job while people are waiting. So, but it's not a difficult thing. It's quite simple. And anyone who's using remote controls with stabilizers and things, or remote control helicopters or whatever, it's probably familiar with those dip switches anyhow. They're hiding somewhere.
Yep. Yeah. So one thing you got to remember to do, can you turn off my X2 controller?
Yep.
So I'll turn off my remote. The first thing you do before you start anything is you put because you can add 2 or 3 lengths of track to make it longer, but you need the longer belts to go with it. I think the new ones, the Shark Slider Minis, have the track built in.
And it looks like a really good design.
Yeah, gee, I wish I had that now. Yeah. But nonetheless, to make this longer, you just add the extra tracks, add the longer belt, which you can buy as an accessory. So the key to it, when you do change the length, is to always start the slider on one end of the track before you turn it on. So I'll turn on the remote. I'm not sure if the order is particular, but this is how I do. I turn on the remote, I turn on the track motor, and then I turn on the X2 motor. And as soon as I do that, my remote control says motion X2 is found, go to default position, you hit the right joystick, and it basically calibrates the X2 motion controller, and that's done. As you can see, goes successful. And the next thing we want to do is check that the setting for the length of the track is set. So we go down to set, we go down to at the moment it is set for 456.5 meters, but I'll just
millimeters.
Millimeters, thank you.
Yes, sorry.
Thanks, David. So if you go into that, you say, is this the endpoint? It's asking. I say, no, the endpoint is over here. So I'm just going to move it and find the endpoint. You've got to be careful when you get to the end. Am I nearly there, David?
Almost, a little bit more.
Yeah.
A little bit more. I'd probably stop it there.
Okay, because if you go too far, you'll go off the track, and then you have to start this process again. So now I'm going to say, yes, this is the end. Save as the endpoint. So now it's memorized the length of the track. So now if I go back into if you press the right joystick, it's like going back. So now if I go back to manual and hit manual, now I've got manual control of the slider, and even if I go really fast, it'll stop automatically at those 2 endpoints. So that's handy. I think there's something...
possibly just, it's not usually...
Yeah, it's not usually that
I think it's
loud.
so close to the microphone as well.
That's how you set the length of the track, and that's important each time you add length to the track.
And I've been caught out before where if you have had it in the extended mode and then you put it back to this mode, and then the computer I guess what it's doing, it counts the revolutions and keeps that as a memory. But you can cause all the cogs to sort of clash. And I have anyone who's around it, and I have a system myself. If you start hearing the cogs, you just pull the power out, and I just say to the sound recordist or the producer, I said, if I'm not here and it starts crunching, just pull that out, and that's the end of the story.
That's a good
and
safety.
Yeah, because it's just there. Just pull
there.
it out. Yeah.
Yep. Great. So also now, once you've got because you can run this just with the slider left and right, or with the X2 motion control, which gives you the other two axes. When you're running both together, the right joystick tilts the unit, and also the right will pan left and right, and you can change that configuration in the menu if you want it to go in opposite directions. So, and of course, the left joystick then becomes the left and right track. Okay, so I've got a move that was programmed before. So I'll show you. I'll show the audience how you program a move. So
and keeping in mind,
yeah,
you can see the other one.
The other one.
That is programmed for this shot.
Yeah. Is a perfect example of how you would use it. And so, as you can see, you have full manual control, or auto, or record. So recording is where you record a move, and you've got up to 9 presets. So you can memorize. So these are the presets you said you've got memorized, the 3 presets. So you can have them, I'll just go to 8, and I'm going to, there's nothing on that preset, so I'm going to start from scratch. I'll hit that button, and now I'll see where it says record. I'm going to hit record and say, well, I want to start here, and yep, I want to move across and maybe move to there, and then tilt down to there, I guess. I can't see the shot. What's it look like? What sort of shot?
The table and the monitors, yeah.
Okay, and then I hit stop. So it's recorded the move from here to there with the tilt and possibly a pan. So now when I go back to auto, I can call up any one of those presets, and I'm going to call up 8, and 8 will come up. Now, A-B mode will just do the move once from A to B, and that's it. A to B A mode will do the move like our 2-shot here, continuously A to B to A and back and forth. So that's the one I want. Track mode will record whatever I did on the move. It will just record it. So if I make a mistake, it'll also do that mistake. But A mode is what we want. You press that, and we can tell it here how long we want that to run for. I think we want it to run for 10 seconds. So I'll just press down the joystick. Oops, not 3 seconds. I went too far. And 10 seconds, and oh look, that'll do. 8 seconds, and then fade in and fade out. I want it to fade in 1.5 seconds, and 1.5 seconds fade out. So that's the feathering we were talking about, either end. So the left joystick takes us up and down, and then we hit next, and then quick back says let's go to the beginning. So it's saying quick back, so it's going to take you to the beginning of the shot. So you always have to do that before you go. And you can either do a single run or a circle run. Circle run is that back and forth.
That's the one we're using.
That's correct. That was set on circle run. So I'll just do single run for the moment, hit that, and away it goes. So that's going to do the move I programmed in the 7 seconds. 8 seconds, sorry.
Yeah. Until the battery goes flat.
Yeah. Oh, actually, this is interesting. ABA mode. So it's going to, okay, ABA actually will go A to B, back to A.
Oh, okay, circle run is the...
Circle run is where it just...
That's the one that camera's on.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So it's as simple as that to program a move. And one last thing I would say about it, and if we go back, it will also do time lapse. It'll do a pano where you can do a panoramic. It'll actually take shots, you know, one by one, and you got to stitch them together.
I think I say this in every video we do. We'll save that for another video.
We'll save that for another video.
And I think because, like I've said, I just use this for video, and the capability for doing the time lapse on stills is amazing. But that's probably something you wouldn't want to rush.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
I've got some examples here of some time-lapse we did with James Grant. He actually used this slide. This is a little bit of a test we did just outside of his place where we used a 10-stop ND filter. It's a third of a stop shutter, just so we can get that motion blur on the cars. And it was 1 frame every 3 seconds. So that was a bit of a test. And then the actual shot will be coming up where he used it, at this location. And I think we had 3 lengths of track here. And I think this one was 1 frame every 2 seconds. And I'm not sure whether we put the ND10 filter on or not, but...
So which camera is this?
This one is the 5D Mark II.
Okay.
Now, as you can see on top of the camera, you also get a remote controller to trigger the camera when you're in photo mode. And that's how these were done. So the remote control plugged into, and there's various cables that come with it depending on your camera, for the Canon, the Sony, the Panasonic. Nikon as well, and so that will trigger remotely, wirelessly. It talks to the remote control, trigger the camera to take the stills. So that's the time-lapse shot up there, and here's another one we did. And I think, if you use a bit of image stabilization software, you can probably smooth out the steppiness on the track there. But anyway, you can do either motion moves, as you say, or time-lapse moves. And there's another thing you can do, which, here it is. What's this? You talk about this.
Okay, so what's happening here is we've put both sets of extensions in. So
I think there were 3 extensions.
So it was almost 2 meters, not quite 2 meters.
7 foot?
Something like that.
Yep.
And I had this bracket made. This is one of my custom brackets.
I was super impressed with this.
Yeah, and we'll pull out another shot to overlay here, but this is to get the XD cam or the Super 35 rigs on their side.
So why did you initially invent this?
Because I was getting a regular gig where the client wanted the camera on its side to maximize the resolution because it was head to toe.
Right, but there's also another purpose. I was once asked to do a similar thing for retail billboards, TVs that are on their side.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, that would make sense. But what the initial gig was that it was on green screen. So any breath of movement, of course, just ruined the green screen. So, I was just putting, and I think other people would be guilty of it too, just putting the camera on a cine saddle, and then, it's just a nightmare walking away from that to adjust lights. But especially the job I was doing was with sportsmen, and so rugby players in particular, so the heights vary, and just having that locked in, the F5 locked in with the big, cinema lens, it was rock solid. But we have found another use for this, and that gets the slider on its end, basically, and we did some tests, and I was...
here it is here, on the vertical, the slider vertically.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I think I was quite happy with it, because they're moves that, even though the jib can do good moves, but not controlled, and of course, if you were doing product shots, for commercial, if someone said, we've got these 5 products that we want to shoot on the...
There's the bracket on the tripod.
Yeah.
And holding up the slider vertically, yeah.
And that's another important thing about this programming capability of this slider, that if it was a TV commercial or a series of TV commercials, a series of product shots, you can match the timing and the move on every shot, and that's a great plus as well.
And it's another advantage with this, the focal plane remains the same. With the jib, it arcs, so you'd have to pull focus as well.
And that problem we have, everyone wants all the ingredients, everyone wants shallow depth of field and the look and wide open lens, blah, blah, blah. But you're right, if something's not lined up on this move, it will go out of focus. So this was a good experiment, but I also think it's quite a saleable product. If someone came along and said, we want to do this.
Well, I've put in an order for one.
Okay, right.
You're gonna,
I'll get onto that.
I'll buy one of those. I've seen how important it is, because I want the capability on my slider also to do those vertical shots. So what other like you said, you probably wouldn't use that vertical shot very often, but I thought of 2 or 3 things you could use, like maybe doing, on an honor roll, on a long lens or a macro lens, going through the honor roll up or down, or a statue that's on a turntable. Yeah. There's endless uses.
Well, there is, but also, we're as cinematographers, we're always trying to do something that the other guys aren't doing, and I think it's an unusual. In the absence of a grip, and I always say that the best, do it properly if you can.
Oh yeah.
But in the absence of having these people around, we can achieve quite a lot. And of course, it's the smaller cameras as well. Although we did test it with the FS5.
Yes.
We stripped the FS5 back, took the handle off, put the small battery on, and that's another thing with this thing. You can adjust the power to the motors.
Oh yes, so I'll just show people that. So if you go to set and you go to slider power, you can go to 100% slider power.
Yeah. So
head power, that'd be the head as well. So you can also adjust the power of the X2 motion controller.
Yeah. Well, I think the FS5 then has that potentially with the raw output of the SDI cable. That means you can record to an external recorder. You can do quality shots, and there's not a huge compromise on the camera, I don't think, on what you're getting.
So how did we mount the camera once we had the...
Well, look, I have, once again, the luxury of having a second satchler or a sizable tripod, and also I have the dolly wheels, I think it's Dolly S is the model.
Yeah, and that's so you can move the whole rig around without having to pick it up and lift it, which could be dangerous.
Yeah, but all these, it could go off angle very easily. So the process of leveling up the ball head, the tripod head, the tilt.
Yeah, that's right. So you need a level,
to get it all, and we got there. Yeah. But then having the whole rig on wheels that can lock, and that makes it easier just to sort of. We just did the test here, but it did make it easier just to wheel it around or move it out of the way when we were working on it or finished with it.
So what are those things on the table? To get the camera to mount, we needed some additional things. So what have you got there?
Well, look, this was a bit of a jigsaw really to get the camera out, extend the camera.
Could you hold that up into your close-up so we can see?
Where am I? Hang on, where am I here? There.
Yep. There we go.
So we used these brackets. Once again, you can check out our other video on clamps. Raid the bag.
So that's a heavy-duty universal ball head. Ball head. Yep.
Yeah. So that went to the side of.
Your bracket?
Yep. And no, the bracket was holding up the whole slider.
Oh yes. You're right. That went on the end of the.
That would have been there.
Yes, that's right.
Like that, and then that was just pushing the camera out.
Yeah, because obviously it would have hit the back of the.
So the camera would have been there, and then that cleared the slider. But we will obviously show that footage, but we can show both lots, the A7S and the FS5. But it's just nice to know that if a producer or a director was adamant about not using the A7S,
that you could put
the FS5 in its external recorder, the Atomus recorder, get the 4K, get the whole thing happening.
Because I think these things, well, at least the slider I know can do 8 kilos on the single track.
Now I'm not sure. I've tried to do some research on that. I don't know. The 8 kilos incorporates the head, the batteries.
So I don't know. Maybe it's different with the X2 motion control, but I certainly know the slider can take up to 8 kilos on the single track.
Yeah, I mean, I've loaded this up with the FS5 and the new Fujinon MK18 to 55, and I just find that the weight there is just a little bit of vibration. I don't know whether I need to tune it or something, but I think the heavier you go, I mean, the inclination is, this is fantastic. Let's just keep putting heavier cameras on, but it does have its limitations, and I've already pointed out mine is out of warranty. I do treat it very well, but I probably wouldn't push things too far if it's brand new. But we have found with our tests, certainly A7S or the Panasonic, the GH4.
The GH5?
And anything that kind of weight, anything you can strip, like the FS5, because you can strip the handles off and the viewfinders and everything, that gets the weight down, small batteries, and that our experiment seemed to work pretty well. And it's another dimension for the creative team and
Well, that's right. These tools are here for us as brushes to our palette to be creative and add production value to our shoots. Now, you know, like I said, once you get your head around the controller, I think it then becomes very powerful and very simple, but it just takes a while to understand the logic. I think the new controller for the Shark Slider Mini is now on your iPhone or iPad.
That would be great.
Yeah, much simpler, and hopefully the logic is much simpler. The other thing too I find very hard, because I'm a Mac person, is very hard to update the software because you've got to do it on PC only. And I've written to iFootage and I said, you know, most creatives in our industry are on Macs, and to, you know, the fact that to upgrade the controller and the software on these devices is only on PC, I think is a bit of a drawback.
I had to get someone else to do it.
Exactly.
I didn't take it on.
Yeah. So if iFootage is listening, please make it simpler for us to update the software for Mac users as well. But maybe the new Shark Slider Mini has addressed that. But it'd be great, maybe, if they can make an app that will work with this unit as well, so you don't have to use the controller, and therefore you can update it through the App Store.
And there's still, iFootage might not like us saying this, but there's nothing wrong with this. The new model is good and it does things a little bit differently. It's possibly a bit simpler with that track, but these are really well made.
Oh, very well made. And I love the fact that they're toolless. You almost need hardly any tools. I think there's an Allen key underneath here. I'm not sure what it's for, but most things are just you know, knobs and levers, ratchets.
There's another thing that I've noticed, and I guess it's because of the brushless motor, the tension, there's always some tension on this tilt head. So when you're balancing up, you know, another remote pan tilt head, you release the motors and the thing just swings and you can get the balance right. There's a bit of resistance in this motor even when the power's not on. So it's a bit of guesswork to actually get the height.
Because that's important to get the nodal point right on all axes to make sure the motors aren't working too hard.
But look, I wouldn't take it, open it up out of the box and take it straight to a job, to be honest. I would definitely spend
with it.
a day.
Hours, I'd say.
And because even you can get caught out, like, you know, as a procedure, that's the brake knob there, and you go, okay, well look, I'll lock that off while I'm doing some work on it, and of course you have to remember to release it. You know? So it still requires some concentration and some care to look after it, because look, it is carbon fibre. It could get damaged easily, but the result, what you put into it, you get a lot out of it.
Yeah, definitely. And it's quite affordable too, as far as sliders go. The other thing too is, if you didn't want to use any of the motors and you want to use it manually, this is what first caught my eye in the first place. This was the first slider that I saw that had the flywheel on the end of it. So if you just want to use it as a manual thing with the flywheel, it's great. It has that inertia, which I found lacking in other sliders, which I loved. And that's how I first got interested in this slider. And then the motor came out, and then the motion control came out, and I added to the kit, which is great. You can do that.
I think I bought it at the point where the motor had come out.
Okay.
And I took the flywheel thing has just been in its pouch in the bag. I've never used it because this programming capabilities is fantastic.
It's superb.
Yeah.
It's basically a motion control rig. The only thing is stability. You've got to make sure that if you are using it for repeated, and you can do special effects on this too, because you can repeat the moves. So you can almost do have 2 or 3 of you in the one shot, just do different runs, and you're over there, then you're over there, then you're over there in each run, and then in post somehow blend them or match them together, and you can do that. But you just got to make sure it's super steady, because if there's any slight move, and I've
personalised some of my techniques. As you know, I have techniques for bracing it at the end when it's fully extended. I have some. Just contact me. We won't discuss it now because it would be another setup, but there is some techniques for using, you know, light stands just to keep the thing level and stop flexing, because, you know, there's a couple of kilograms here, so once it goes out you have to brace it if it's not on a flat surface.
If the stands are too lightweight and they do that, if it's a bit windy, you might find, I think on the day when we did that other time lapse with James, the wind was buffeting the unit a little bit, but again, with a bit of image stabilizing software like Warp Stabilize, I think you can probably smooth that out. I think we've talked about everything we want to talk about. David, is there anything else?
No. Other than I
Can we
recommend
give
it.
one last plug on this unit? So if anyone wants to buy this right angle adapter, please contact David. I'm sure he can sell you one.
Look, they're definitely. I've had this made by an engineer,
Yep.
and it's definitely strong.
Yep. What sort of weight? You've put your XD cam on that?
XD, the F5 with the Cine Servo batteries, radio mics.
Yeah,
and
it's pretty solid, isn't
and it's
it?
designed. Actually, I'm not quite sure which way it goes, but it is designed to have the center of gravity is about right. Like we designed it so that the body of the camera,
Yep.
with batteries and lens, was about right. So I'm not sure if you can actually buy them on B&H. If there's anything
No, I don't
similar.
think I've not seen anything like that. So if you're interested in one, I've put my order in, get yours in too, and you can have a right angle adapter for all those retail vertical shots on any camera you want to shoot it with. And also you'll be able to put your slider, whichever slider you're using, on that vertical as well, with that fantastic invention that David and your mate...
Yes, my buddy who restores classic cars, he takes a bit of time out to work on my projects, but he's a genius for this stuff. So
He's your engineer.
He's my engineer, yeah.
Great, fantastic. Well, thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this video, and keep an eye out for more to come.